Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You have found the dark oak. On today's episode, we investigate the burning car murder.
And Stephanie, you gave me just a little hint about this, and I am ready. This sounds very, very intriguing. I don't think I've heard of this case.
It's old.
Okay, well,
It's old.
all right. I can't wait to hear more about it. Welcome to The Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month, through our charity called the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of our earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out how you can be a part of the movement, head over to thedarkoak.com or stay with us until the end of the episode and we will give you all the details.
It was actually fun researching this case since it's a historical British crime. There aren't a ton of American creators that have covered this.
Oh, cool.
Like not a lot of podcasts,
All right.
a lot of vloggers, not a lot of bloggers. So every time I would go to listen to it on, say, another podcast, just to see if there was any other tidbits of information I could glean, almost every one is by a British podcaster. So I feel like as I'm covering this case, I have to do it in like a British accent.
Okay.
Which I will not torture you
Give
with.
it a go, Cheerio.
Yeah. That's so funny. I actually wrote in the side, I said cheerio. But I'm pretty sure that just means goodbye. So I have to say that for the end. But also I need to throw in a few like mates and things like that.
All right.
Yeah. Also, I don't know, Mary Poppins, something that could be in there somewhere, right?
Spoonful of sugar. I'm really good at accents, as you can tell.
You're about as good as I am. So never fear. We will not do British accents. But I do feel slightly compelled to pay attention to the fact that this is a historical British crime.
In my head, I'm going to hear you speaking in a British accent.
Do it. Do it.
I'll turn on the
It's
translate.
the only way. It's the only way you can really listen to this case.
You heard that, listeners.
So our criminal, the bad guy in this story, is named Alfred Rouse. Now, Alfred Rouse was born in Milkwood Ranch in Herne Hill in London.
That's a cute name, Milkwood Ranch.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, me too. And he was born on April 6, 1894.
Okay, so we are going back a bit.
Way back.
Okay.
Way back. He was one of 3 children born to an English father and an Irish mother. His father, Walter Edward Rouse, worked as a hosier.
And that is a dresser or a...
Literally somebody who makes like socks and stockings.
Oh, okay.
A hosier.
Okay, that's what my mind went to, but I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's
okay.
really what it sounds like. And his mother, the Brits, again, the way they speak, it's a little dry, but everyone said his mother claimed to be an actress.
Oh.
Which the way it translates for us would be like, she wasn't. But I actually think she was in some capacity. I wasn't able to find out more. But anyway, she claimed to be an actress. Doesn't that sound terrible?
It actually makes me laugh a little bit. And I relate just a little bit. Like
Cynthia claimed to be an actress.
I claimed to be an actress. I've done some shows.
But nonetheless, the inclusion of her part in the story is very brief because in 1990, when Alfred was only 6 years old, his mother abandoned the family.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk about her too much. But his father arranged for an aunt to primarily care for the children. And despite really what could be a terrible time, Alfred was described as a polite and caring child. And while he wasn't particularly academically gifted, his teachers were really pleased with him. And he did really well in school because he was well behaved, diligent, followed the rules, just seemed like a really pleasant kid, truly.
Okay, well, that's great.
When Alfred was 14 years old, though, he left school to begin work. And I don't think it was that uncommon probably during that time, especially if in a more impoverished area. And in 1909, he began working for a furniture manufacturer. And he enjoyed his work, and he was described as an enthusiastic employee. And he also met a young office clerk named Lily Mae Watkins.
Another cute name, Lily Mae.
I know, Lily Mae Watkins.
It's adorable.
Yes. Lily took notice of Alfred's charismatic personality and was taken in by his musical gifts.
Okay.
I know I'm speaking your language now, right?
Once again, I claim to be a musician as well.
She claimed to be a musician. Now, unlike Cynthia's claims, Alfred actually was musically gifted.
Oh, okay. See what she did there, folks? You see what I put up with?
Yes. I'm just doing what the British podcasters do. That's all. But he played various instruments. He became a proficient pianist, violinist, and mandolinist.
That's amazing.
Which mandolinist?
Yeah.
I like saying that name.
Yeah.
Word, not a name. I guess mandolin is a word, but mandolinist.
I like it.
He also was said to have a beautiful baritone voice.
Oh, nice.
Which he used to sing regularly around the office.
Okay, I like him so far. I'm sad to hear this is going to go wrong.
Yes, sad to hear he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so his childhood, pretty good.
Yeah.
He and Lily Mae started seeing each other, and she encouraged Alfred to start taking night school to work on his performance and his chances of a promotion. And in 1913, Alfred began training as a carpenter. Kind of with the idea, I assume, because he was in furniture, that he would design his own furniture. Unfortunately, though, that would never come to fruition because just a few months later, on July 28th, 1914, Britain would enter World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Just 4 days later, 20-year-old Alfred Rouse would enlist. He was assigned to the 24th Queen's Regiment, and while training in England before his departure for France, he married his love, Lily Mae Watkins. Alfred arrived in France on March 15th, 1915, and was stationed in Paris for some weeks before his unit was sent into battle. Alfred's unit was assigned to the Battle of Festubert and Artois.
Fancy.
I don't know why I needed a pause. Like, I needed an accolade for
know.
like saying that. I was like, Artois.
You give me a look like I should know exactly what she's talking about. So, feeling a little pressure here.
Alfred's unit was assigned to the Battle of Festubert and Artois, which began 2 months after their arrival in France. Now here, Alfred would experience a defining moment in his life. During battle, Alfred came face to face with a German soldier in a bayonet attack, which, I mean, hand-to-hand, face-to-face combat, I mean,
that's rough.
I just don't know that you can come back from that, truly. But in this situation, he took a beat to think about what he was going to do. And then he lunged at the soldier. But because the other soldier was aware of what he was doing, he moved away. And so Alfred missed him. And he realized this could have been deadly for him because he had hesitated. And the other soldier could have gotten the other hand. Apparently, this haunted him the rest of his life because he thought about how the enemy could have taken him out because he took too long, like he hesitated. And so he promised himself in that moment that he would always strike first. But this would, it's a theme in his life because he starts having a lot of nightmares and things about it and disturbed sleep. Now, there's some other things that could have attributed to it, but he said this was always the nightmare, the reoccurring nightmare that he had. And it was one of his big regrets that he waited.
Well, I mean, sure, that's a very life-altering moment. It sounds like he really needed some therapy, which probably wasn't super prevalent back then. But
yeah, therapy during World War I wasn't really a thing.
But if we could have provided that, we may have a different outcome.
Yeah, it's very possible. Unfortunately, he would never get a chance to test out his new resolve because only 10 weeks after he arrived, Alfred sustained major injuries from an explosion of a high explosive shell. He sustained wounds to his head, knee, and thigh as the shell exploded close to his head, which sent numerous fragments of shrapnel into his head and leg and rendered him unconscious.
So he's had a traumatic brain injury.
So now he's had a traumatic experience and a traumatic brain injury.
Mm-hmm. Not a great combo.
Not a great combo. The trauma was so severe, in fact, that it was determined that he must immediately return home to England via train. And he didn't even regain consciousness until the hospital train passed through the town of Bedford en route to a UK Ministry Defence hospital.
So he's really lucky he survived, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
Sounds like.
Absolutely, he is. As a result of his injuries, Alfred remained hospitalized for almost a year.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, he would undergo several operations on his left temporal region,
Mm,
and some of which were literally performed to remove embedded pieces of shrapnel.
yeah. I feel like, not knowing anything else, I feel like this is really the catalyst for what happened. We know that brain injuries can be bad. And since he had such a normal life leading up to this,
Right.
this sounds like this might be where it started to go wrong.
Exactly. He had similar surgeries on his leg as
Mhm.
well, particularly the knee area where the shrapnel had really embedded itself in the joint.
Oh, man. Talk about painful.
Really painful, and trying to heal from a brain injury.
Right. Well, you're in the hospital for a year.
Yeah.
After this traumatic experience of hand-to-hand combat, war,
All of it.
just the whole thing.
All of it. During this time in Alfred's life, he was considered essentially severely disabled. He struggled mightily with his memory, and even the act of wearing a hat was difficult because, and during that time, it would have been very customary for a man to wear a hat, but it was difficult even because the scar tissue on his temples was so inflamed and raised that it was really bothersome to him. And as such, he was rewarded a military pension for his injuries, which that's the least I think that could be done in this situation. However, after 3.5 years of rehabilitation and recovery, it was believed by Alfred's doctors that, with the exception of reduced flexibility in his knee, Alfred was completely healed and no longer disabled.
That's amazing.
Now, of course, now knowing what we know, maybe there was something else going on, but he didn't have any other memory issues. He was able to move around. He had full physical capabilities again. So
On surface level,
on
it
surface
appeared he was
level,
100% recovered.
exactly. And he felt like he was as well.
Okay.
And so really is, again, hindsight's 2020, but at this point, it seemed like a miraculous recovery story. Unfortunately, the maybe unhappy news part of it was because he was no longer disabled, his pension was complete. And it meant he had to now seek meaningful employment of his own accord.
Sure.
Now, this wasn't a bad thing for him. He actually considered it a positive. And also, he really didn't want to squander any of the physical improvements he had worked so hard to gain. So he started looking for ways to increase his mobility, and he tried to find work that would help him with that. So in 1920, he began working with motor vehicles and became a moderately skilled auto mechanic.
Okay. So he's doing it.
He's doing it. Unfortunately, Alfred's downfall was that he loved the ladies.
Well, I mean,
and I mean,
we're hard not to love.
Ooh, and I mean, but he really loves
Oh,
the
okay.
ladies. And, his stories of war and his injuries, dramatics, just gave him the perfect way.
Was he handsome?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that he was.
Okay.
And, it just gave him the perfect way to kind of win the hearts of any woman he found attractive.
Okay. So he's got that charisma, that charm.
Yes. And he's got that baritone voice.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a mandolinist.
Musicians are pretty hot.
Yes. And of course, he never did mention to any of these ladies that he's still married.
Oh, no. Well, that just gets in the way.
To Lily Mae Watkins.
Where is she during all of this?
Oh, she's around.
Oh, she's by his side.
By his side.
Oh, bless her heart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This gets a little sticky.
Poor Lily Mae.
Poor Lily Mae, truly. The first known woman, quote, woman.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I read, it says woman. But let me tell you the rest of the story. The first known woman he seduced was a 14-year-old Edinburgh girl who he impregnated at the age of 15.
Oh, no. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Then abandoned.
Of course, because he's married.
Because he's married. And he left her to give birth to her child in a home for unwed mothers.
Oh, man. Come on.
4 years later, in 1925, Alfred began an affair with a domestic servant named Nellie Tucker. In 1928, Nellie gave birth to a baby girl, and shortly thereafter, she obtained a child support order. So she was a little bit more on the ball with these kind of things.
And he is now going to be affected quite a bit.
He is indeed. In June of 1929, he realized he needed more money to pay the child support. So he started working for a company that sold braces and garters. So these are like leg braces, like polio leg braces and things like that. Now, this was a good move for him as it paid a salary, it paid a commission, and it paid most of his living expenses. So
Okay.
he's thinking like, bing, bang, got it done.
Good
got
deal.
it figured out. Good deal. In 1930, he and Lily were even able to purchase a car, which was a big deal at the time. I mean, it's a big deal now too.
Sure.
Right. But then, I mean, cars were the new thing. For all you gearheads out there, it was a 1928 Morris Minor, which doesn't mean necessarily anything to me, but it was a sharp looking rig back in the day.
Okay. Nice.
And he and Lily were also able to obtain a mortgage to buy a house on Buxton Road in North London.
All right. So they're doing well.
Everything seemed to be really looking up.
Okay.
Seemed to really be looking up.
All right. Come ruin my day, Steph.
Yeah, sorry. All was not what it seemed. Alfred again began to experience sleepless nights, which he attributed to his head injuries and his traumatic experience during the war. But the real issue came in the summer of 1930. While Alfred had been paying Nellie Tucker for the child they had created together, they also managed to create a whole nother child. She was now pregnant with their second child. This time, though, she expected Alfred to leave his wife and marry her.
Okay.
In addition, a young Welsh woman named Phyllis Jenkins was also pregnant with
Oh,
his baby.
no. Oh, come on.
And also fully expecting marriage in the near future. For her part, though, she didn't even know he was married.
So he is being very dishonest, minimum dishonest,
Minimum.
but potentially telling these women he's going to leave his wife if they even know about her.
He's telling them anything they want to
Does
hear.
Lily May know about all these babies?
I suppose it's possible he was able to cover up the child support.
Especially back then.
Especially back then. This gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
I was never able to find out what she knew or didn't know.
Okay.
She never gave any statements. She never talked to anyone. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that she didn't know. But
I have an inkling.
an inkling. So I don't know if she knew and was just complicit.
But again, in the 1920s,
What do
a
you
woman
do?
may not know what her man is spending, what her husband is spending his money on.
Exactly.
She probably gets an allowance and she better smile and be happy and have dinner ready.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I do get the feeling that he really did care for her, Lily May, but, obviously he treated her incredibly unfairly.
As well as all the other women.
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, what I've told you is only the tip of the iceberg.
No, he's already got how many? Hold on. Let me just 4 babies though, right? 4 with 3 different women.
Right. And he had a child with his wife too. He had a child with Lily May.
Okay.
So, through what has been attributed to Alfred's high sex drive and his general promiscuity, plus the fact that his job required him to travel extensively across the entire country, and this is why I say I don't know what Lily May really knew, because he now had this very convenient job that he could use as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he's traveling around, he was known to have conducted a number of affairs with women, both married and single, whom he typically encountered through his employment.
Okay. I mean,
Isn't that the tale of oldest time?
yeah.
I feel like work trips are a very convenient excuse for, it's a very convenient way to conceal an affair.
Yes.
Now, as with the previous women mentioned, many of these women came from poor backgrounds, and they were easily duped by Alfred's charismatic personality, his fabrications of being a wealthy London entrepreneur, and his promises of marriage. So he promised everybody and their mother, like, he was going to marry them. Actually, probably literally, and their mother. And for the ultimate coup de grace, despite already being married and the father of a child, several children that we know of now, he bigamously married at least 3 of these women.
Oh my goodness. So he literally has 4, what they believe themselves to be married to this man.
We genuinely do not know how many women were involved in this.
So
we just know there were a bunch of them.
Yeah. So he's just taken them all for a wild ride.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not as big of an Alfred fan as I started off being, I have to say.
Yeah, but it does,
as a woman,
isn't it a weird dichotomy? I mean, how he was so, what we call socially normal, typical before, and now it's strange decision making.
Now, I will say there probably always was a level of trauma from his
Probably.
mother abandoning him. I mean, but
Sure, you've got that on top of it too.
so now he's looking for women to love. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but is he filling that void with all these women
I don't know. I also feel like any of that's just excuse making too. I mean, this is just
for a man to just sleep around?
yes.
Maybe he just wanted to sleep around.
Maybe he just wanted to
you're
sleep
right.
around. I don't know. As a result of these affairs, Alfred fathered an additional unknown number of illegitimate children, including a French woman that he impregnated during his short time in France. During the
Wow.
war.
Okay.
I mean, they're everywhere.
We are all descendants.
It felt like it when researching this. I was like, where does it end? Now, to Alfred, all of a sudden he realized, oh, shoot. Like, not only is this probably not something I can really disguise that much from Lily May, but financially, how am I going to support all of these children? And it's unclear kind of when or where he came up with this murderous intent, but he decided to escape his financial woes. He was going to fake his own death.
Brilliant. What else can you do at that point?
What else could you do? I mean,
It's really the only way out.
it's really the only way. So on November 6, 1930, during a festival known as Guy Fawkes Night or Bonfire Night, which is an annual commemoration in Great Britain, which involves bonfires and fireworks, two men returning home at 1:30 a.m. from a Guy Fawkes Night dance in the town of Northampton to their homes in the nearby village of Hardingston saw a fire in the distance. As Guy Fawkes Night had just passed, the men assumed that the fire they could see in the distance was just a bonfire, like a celebratory bonfire. But as they walked down Hardingston Lane towards the fire in the direction of their homes, a neatly dressed man carrying a small suitcase was passing in the opposite direction. When one of the young men remarked as to the fire he could see in the distance, the neatly dressed man nodded and just said, "Yeah, looks like somebody's having a bonfire up there." Then he walked past, and the two men continued in the direction that they were walking. As they got closer, they realized the flame was actually a burning Morris Minor, the car.
Okay.
The fire was so intense, the flames reached as high as 12 feet. So there was no chance of approaching the car to see if there was any aid that could be given. The two men, though, ran into town and they gathered help. The Hardingston Village Constable, Harry Bertie Coping, and the parish constable accompanied the two men to the scene, and together the four men extinguished the fire with water from the nearby pond. Once the fire had diminished, the men saw what they believed was a charred head. Further inspection revealed a badly charred corpse. The investigators also found a wooden mallet with 3 human hairs attached to it next to the car. And incredibly, while the fire managed to burn almost the entire vehicle, the license plate on the back of the car was still fully intact.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. It almost reminds me of the Cinder Woman case that we just covered for our Patreon.
Oh.
Yeah, poor Mary Reeser, where essentially she was reduced to nothing but ash, but her foot was still intact. Not to like a direct comparison. I hope that's not too morbid, but you know what I mean? Where it's just like fires are strange.
Fires are strange, for sure.
Yeah. So conveniently, they were almost immediately able to trace this car back to Alfred Rouse.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the license plate.
Yeah. I'm actually going to post a photo of this car on our social media because it's really incredible. The car is basically gone and there's like the back bumper still standing with the license plate on it.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's almost like the powers that be wanted him to be found.
Would he, because he's trying to fake his own death, I can only assume that the corpse inside is not him. We will find out.
Yes.
So would he want, though, if you want people to believe you're dead, would you want them to realize it's your car?
Yeah.
Like, is it convenient?
I guess that's true. I don't really know. To tell you the truth, he's not exactly a criminal mastermind.
Okay.
So I don't even know if he thought that far.
Oh,
to tell you
okay.
the truth.
'Cause I'd be like, how convenient. You know it's my car.
Well, right. As it turns out, we now know he did this. I mean, so you know the end result. You know he got caught, but I'm not sure. I guess that's true. I guess it could have gone either way. Now, a forensic examination of the vehicle revealed a fitting on the pipe between the fuel tank and the carburetor of the vehicle had been loosened before the fire had been ignited, which would have allowed fuel to freely stream both into and under the car. And this kind of was concluded, maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe this was intentionally set. The fire was intentionally set. And an autopsy, the body found in the car revealed that it was a man between the ages of 33 and 37 years old. And from the conditions of the lungs, it was also concluded the person must have worked somewhere with a lot of dust throughout their lifetime. There was a lot of buildup of dust in the lungs. Unnervingly, it also was determined that the person in the vehicle had been alive when the blaze began. Mercifully, it appeared that the person in the car had been unconscious during the time of the fire, and they more than likely died within 30 seconds of exposure to the flames because they were so hot.
Wow. Okay. That's hot.
At this time, detectives believed the dead man to be Alfred Rouse.
Sure.
Why would you not?
wouldn't
Right. And after all, it was his car, and the victim certainly would have met the description of Alfred.
And it lines up because the person was alive, but was unconscious. So could have
Absolutely.
gotten a little accident, car caught on fire for whatever reason.
Or even if it was intentionally set, maybe he really did commit suicide.
Right.
Yeah. Police visited Alfred's home and spoke to his wife, Lily Mae. She was able to confirm her husband had left home at approximately 8:30 p.m. the previous day to attend a business meeting in Leicester, but she was sure that he had been home around 2 a.m. that morning, but he didn't say anything to her.
Okay.
So she's saying, I know he left, but he came back. So how could he be burned up in this car?
But he's not home now.
He's not home now. She was subsequently taken to the morgue to possibly identify her husband's remains.
Oh.
Now, I will say, before you go too far into that, because the body was so badly burned, she was only presented with some scraps of clothing and a wallet.
Okay. I was going to say, what?
Yeah, what could she identify? Exactly. Now, she was unsure about the origin of the clothing. She wasn't sure if it was Alfred's or not, but she confirmed the wallet was definitely his.
Poor Lily Mae.
Exactly. Now, Lily Mae's insistence that her husband had been home at 2 a.m., however, really set off some alarm bells for investigators. And there was also the testimony of the two men that had reported seeing a man walking away from the blaze.
Because this accident happened, remind me again what time the accident happened?
It was like 1:30 in the morning.
Okay. If he was in that car, he could not have been home at 2 a.m.
Exactly. And also, I mean, there's a man. So, of course, the men who had originally seen the blaze that helped him put it out talked to investigators, and they're like, did you see anything out here? They're like,
Right.
yeah, there was a man walking away from the fire.
Right.
Which
Okay.
is suspicious.
Suspicious.
Right?
Okay.
And of course, it didn't take long for the British press to catch wind of this kind of crazy situation. And immediately it was turned into a scandal. And within a few days of the mysterious blaze, there was a whole unidentified victim. It was just started circulating countrywide.
Okay. So right off the bat, people were like, this is not what it appears to
Suspicious.
be.
Exactly.
Oh, that's interesting, because you would think that long ago, you may not be so quick to put all that together.
They really did. They were on it.
But just the fact that she said, no, he came home at 2 a.m. and witnesses saw somebody leaving the vehicle,
Yeah.
or around the area of the vehicle.
Exactly. They said something just doesn't feel right. And they didn't say it. I mean, again, I'm trying to read news articles from like the early 1900s, but it's almost like somebody just had a gut feeling. Like something's just not making sense here. What we will later find out is this indeed was not Alfred in the
Okay.
car, but rather someone Alfred had put in that car.
Oh my gosh. I just got chills. Like, ugh.
As for Alfred himself, he walked away from the blaze, hitched a ride to London. He arrived home around 6 a.m., not 2 a.m., as his wife incorrectly reported.
That's weird.
There really is no explanation as to discrepancy there. However, I'm glad she said he came home. Otherwise, they may not have investigated any further.
Right.
Kind of a weird detail, right? But according to him, he finally got home at 6 a.m. He only stayed home for about 30 minutes before traveling by train to Glamorganshire to meet with his mistress, Phyllis Jenkins.
Oh.
Now, when Phyllis asked Alfred where his car was, his brand new shiny car.
Right, because he's arriving on train now.
Because he's arriving by train and by foot. And I think even from the train station, he had like hitchhiked.
Okay.
And so he was a little disheveled when he got there.
Things are odd.
She said, "Where's your car?" He replied that it had been stolen in New Hamptonshire the previous day and that this is why it took him 18 hours to reach her.
Okay. I mean, that's hard to argue with.
He assured Phyllis that he had reported the car theft to both the police and his insurance company. Early the next morning, however, Phyllis showed him a newspaper displaying an image of his burnt out car attached to an article which was speculating whether the deceased occupant had been the owner of the vehicle or questioning whether it had been murder.
I was wondering as we were going through all this if maybe one of his mistresses maybe knew the plan. Hey, this is how I'm going to get to marry you, run away with you. But at least Phyllis didn't, it appears.
Phyllis had no idea. And as far as I can tell, no one had any idea. This was his own idiotic brainchild.
For as much planning as it seems like it may have taken, there was actually a lot of details that appear to have been missed.
I told you, he's not exactly a criminal mastermind.
He's no
here.
DB Cooper.
He's no DB Cooper. No doubt about that. Now, in response to this, Alfred denied that the car was his. He claimed that he would head back to London to settle the whole matter.
Well, why couldn't he have just said, well, my car was stolen and unless the dates didn't match up, but why couldn't he say my car was stolen? That must have been where it ended up.
I think that's what he was insinuating. The fact that the newspaper article was insinuating there was a murder involved with the charges,
that's probably what freaked her.
That's probably what freaked her.
Okay.
Of course it is. Yeah. So at 10 a.m., he boarded a coach headed for Hammersmith Broadway. As soon as Alfred's coach departed, Phyllis called her sister and asked her sister what she should do. Rightly so. The two women decided to inform the local police that Alfred had been at Phyllis's home and told them of his travel plans. The information was then given to the Metropolitan Police Service. That evening, Alfred was arrested at the Hammersmith Coach Terminal by Detective Sergeant Skelly of the Metropolitan Police, who had been waiting for him at the coach terminal.
I love that Phyllis turned him in.
I love that she did too. She did pause for a moment, but in the end, she did the right thing.
Well, I feel like she paused because maybe what he was telling her was the truth.
Right. Her sister gave her good advice.
Right. She at least questioned, what should I do here? Because of course she doesn't want to believe that the guy she's been shacking up with is a murderer.
No, that would be a shock to the senses for sure. Now, in response to being detained, Alfred told a rambling story about picking up a hitchhiker, the two of them getting lost, and then the two men subsequently deciding to sleep in the car on the side of the road. Supposedly, Alfred exited the car to relieve himself, and the hitchhiker offered to fill up the car with petroleum. Before doing so, the hitchhiker asked for a cigarette. Since Alfred didn't smoke, he instead offered him a cigar. Alfred said the hitchhiker must have mistakenly set the car ablaze when refueling. But this didn't make sense, even for the casual observer. Firstly, if a hitchhiker had been alive and well, wouldn't they have tried to escape the burning car?
One would think.
Secondly, if Alfred had exited the car to simply relieve himself, why did he have a briefcase with him?
And why didn't he go for help? Why didn't he try to put out the flames? Why didn't he help the constables and the two witnesses?
All the things.
Yeah.
All the things. Like, this doesn't make sense.
But also, where is this car parked? Is it at a petroleum station? At a place where they would fill up a car?
No. So they had an extra, back then the cars didn't have very big tanks. And so they literally
carried it.
They had a container of fuel in the back.
Okay.
And so the insinuation was he got out to, use the bathroom, and the hitchhiker was like, you know what, just to help you out, I'm just going to go ahead and refill the car for us while we're here.
Okay.
And so it was not unusual to have fuel, like a separate container of fuel in one of these cars.
Which would make your car more flammable.
So, well, these cars in general were just flammable.
Okay.
I think that was the mark of some of the original cars. They didn't have a lot of the safety proofing and stuff that we have now.
Okay.
Could his story have been plausible? Yes. But all the other circumstances,
his
make it not make
behavior
sense.
and the behavior of the person who just apparently sat there while on fire and unconscious
Yeah. And also, there was this discovery that the fuel pipes had been tampered with too.
Right. Okay.
Remember? So they confronted him with this, and he still just continued to maintain that it was an accident. I don't know why that was like that. I never touched it. I never would have done anything with that. It was just an accident. Alfred then added that the hitchhiker had been inebriated and could have possibly spilled petrol into the car or on himself. And in response to questions about the briefcase, he said he was suspicious of the man and didn't want to leave his briefcase unattended. So that's why he took it with him when he was relieving himself.
You know what? This is some reasonable doubt, just like surface level. Just here, I'm like, okay, I could buy this. I have questions, but
Yeah. He also, of course, alleged that he tried to save the man, but that the blaze was too intense.
now the witnesses don't agree with this story.
Oh, no, because he was just strolling away.
Right. And he wasn't there continuing to help.
Oh, no, he was
Nor
definitely...
did he go for help.
Exactly. All the things. So it's like, well, did you really try to help him?
Right.
Because you're like, well, c'est la vie.
I'm going to go to my mistress's.
Yeah, that's my car and this guy I was giving a ride to. I'm out of
Right.
here. Just kind of, it doesn't line up. Right.
Right.
Investigators figured this out too. And they decided to peek into his background just to see what's going on in there. And it took them like 3 seconds to realize Alfred was really in a tough spot. There was absolutely no way with his current finances that he could ever keep up with his many numerous claims for child support. And remember, now he has a mortgage with Lily Mae that he's trying to keep up as well. It was also revealed, that Alfred had recently taken out a life insurance policy for £100,000 in which he named his wife and son as benefactors.
So what was his plan? For the mistresses to think he's dead?
Yes.
And was
Well,
he gonna,
everybody would think he was dead.
even his wife?
Yeah, but he was going to leave her with money.
Okay, so the money wasn't for him. He was just going to go start off.
No, it's a
Start a
life
new life.
insurance policy on his life.
Right, but I
Right.
didn't know if he was somehow going to meet back up with Lily
Oh,
Mae.
I see what you're saying. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he was literally just going to sever ties with everybody he knew and just get out of town.
Okay, but make sure that his wife and child,
Right.
one of his children, was taken care of.
One of
His legitimate.
legitimate child was taken care of. That would have paid off their mortgage and they
Okay.
could have lived.
But everybody else, sayonara, except for apparently Phyllis.
Okay, so we're gonna find out a little more. This wasn't his plan.
Okay, all
This
right.
wasn't his original plan.
Okay,
Phyllis was just kind of convenient, I think.
a place
for
to go.
Plan B.
Okay.
Exactly. As we're all putting together, he was attempting to fake his own death
Mhm.
and just start fresh somewhere new. Trial began on January 6, 1931. As evidence, doctors testified that the victim was alive at the time that the fire was started. They claimed the wood mallet next to the car was most likely used to subdue the victim before the blaze began. Analysis of the victim's clothing also revealed that, again, they had been soaked in petrol. The defense argued that the pipes that were allegedly tampered with could have become loosened during the fire. And they said since the hitchhiker had been drinking, he might have spilled the fuel on himself when attempting to refuel the car.
Okay, I can buy both of those things.
The prosecution pressed on that Alfred was trying to make a fresh start. To emphasize this, 3 of Alfred's mistresses testified that he had claimed that he was not married, but would marry them.
Oh man, bad day. Bad day for Alfred.
This was bad. I mean, this is bad. This is just
That's just awkward. It's just awkward. He's got to look them all in the eye. They're all in the same room.
As you can imagine, this did not go well for his trial. Yeah. The very typically confident Alfred took the stand in his own defense, and he became very unnerved when placed on the stand and began contradicting himself, and he couldn't explain many of his actions. For example, he had no response when questioned about why he told his mistress, Phyllis, that his car had been stolen.
Right, because now he's got a different story. No, the hitchhiker, the
Exactly.
fire.
So then why did you tell her your car was stolen? He had nothing to say. And even Phyllis later testified that he smelled of fuel
Mm.
and part of his eyebrow was singed, and he had no response for any of that either. Alfred, not surprisingly, was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. After the verdict was read, before his sentencing, he looked at the judge and in a confident voice said, "But sir, I am innocent." Well, I don't think so. I don't think so, Alfred. His defense lodged an appeal, but it was dismissed. He was visited by his wife and two of his mistresses while awaiting his execution. I mean, this guy really had something. I don't know. I don't know if I would have stuck through all this.
He must have been quite the charmer.
That baritone voice really did it for them.
He's got something going on, because even after finding out I'm one of like 16 and you're already married and you're a murderer, but I'm still going to come say hi to you.
Play that mandolin for me.
Wow.
On Tuesday, March 10th, 1931, Alfred Rouse was hanged in Bedford Gaol. Alfred never formally took responsibility for the fire before his execution, but he did write a letter to the Daily Sketch, which was subsequently published. It reads, Nellie Tucker was expecting another child, and I was expecting to hear from Phyllis Jenkins similar news. There were other difficulties, and I was fed up. I wanted to start life afresh. In the autumn of last year, something happened which made me think again. A man spoke to me near the Swan and Pyramid public house. He was a down and out, and he told the usual hard luck story. I took him into the public house, and he had some beer. I had lemonade. Of course, I paid for the drinks. He told me he usually hung out there. He did not tell me his name, but he did say that he had no relations and was looking for work, and that he was in the habit of getting lifts in lorries. He was the sort of man nobody would miss, and I thought he would suit the plan I had in mind. I suddenly realized I should do it on 5 November when a fire would not be noticed so much. I think it was 2 or 3 November when I searched out the man. He was having a drink of beer and we talked. When I said that I intended to go to Leicester on Wednesday, he said he would be glad to get a lift up there. I made an appointment with him for Wednesday night for 8 o'clock. I met him outside the Swan and Pyramid. He talked a lot on the journey to Leicester, but he did not tell me who he actually was, and I didn't care. The man was half dozing, the effect of the whiskey. I gripped him by the throat with my right hand. I pressed his head against the back of the seat. He slid down, his hat falling off. I saw he had a bald patch on the crown of his head. He just gurgled. I pressed his throat harder. He did not resist.
That's really scary.
Chilling. Here's this guy that we're kind of like, oh, he's not so bad. And then he flat out writes this letter and sends it to a newspaper.
Yeah, that's really
Ew. Ew. And the disrespect for this man.
Oh, yeah.
He's killed.
Yeah, just didn't care.
Horrible.
Nobody'd miss him.
Nobody miss him.
Awful.
The letter goes on to say, after strangling his companion, he doused the inside of the car and the man with petrol from the trunk. Alfred then said he loosened the fuel pipe, just as investigators had theorized, before stepping back and lighting a match. His initial intention was to walk back to Northampton and travel to Scotland to start his new life. But when he was seen by the two men walking home on Guy Fawkes night, he realized his plans had been foiled because they were going to say, we saw him walking away from the car. He then changed his plans, instead rushing home to London, where he made up the story about his car being stolen.
Okay.
In the letter, he reiterates again he did not know the name of his victim, and he wrote, quote, there is no reason why I should do so, end quote. Horrible and bleak.
I wonder if that, I mean, not that he seems to care one way or the other, but I wonder if that somehow made it easier for him to not know.
I did think that if part of it was he just needed to disassociate.
Right.
Like it can't be a real person.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah. This case is particularly notable because Alfred was convicted and executed based on killing a man who he's unknown. His identity is unknown.
That is weird. That's very weird. Now that you mention it, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so I'm telling you this true crime story, but essentially the mystery is, who was the man?
Who did you murder?
He's nameless.
Wow.
And sad. I'm telling you this story, not for Alfred, because that dude, no, but for the man. After the trial, he was interred in a grave marked with a simple cross bearing the inscription, quote, in memory of an unknown man, died November 6, 1930, end quote, in the grounds of St. Edmund's Church in Hardingston, Northamptonshire. A metal box containing several newspaper accounts of Alfred's trial were buried with him, which I don't know how I feel about that. I'm like, I mean, I guess it's the only part of this man's life that you know.
It's something.
It's something.
It's something, and it's, I guess, in their minds, potentially like this person paid the price for what he did to you. Like this is the justice, so we're giving you that.
Right. While Alfred refused to help the police identify his victim before his execution, refused.
But it also sounds like maybe he didn't know.
Or also he didn't. Couldn't. Right. I mean, I don't know. The fact that he refused to even help them. He did offer before his execution this vague description. He said the man was around 40 years of age, between 5'6" and 5'8", and respectably dressed in a light-colored overcoat with the general appearance of a clerk, is what he said. So I don't know if that means like he works in an office. The man had a boxing or sporting tattoo of some kind on his right forearm, and he was wearing police boots, which Alfred claimed the man had informed him had been given to him by London police. So maybe if he had been living, maybe he was homeless. I'm not really sure.
But it sounds like he doesn't fit that description in other ways, like respectably dressed, has a good job.
No, I agree. Maybe he was like a friend of a police officer or something that gave him the boots. I'm not really sure.
Well, and what are police boots back then? Like, are they just boots? Because like you could buy police boots now, or the kind of boots.
In my mind, they're shiny. So Megan, we're thinking British police officers, like some shiny boots.
So not like combat boots.
No. I think they would be more like, like the Queen's army. I think they'd be more like polished boots.
Okay.
But I don't really know. He also said the man was carrying a sports diary. So maybe I thought that maybe mean like betting, like books. Like a sports diary, like betting books, like kind of thing.
When you said betting, my mind went to sheets and duvets and
betting, not bedding.
I was literally looking at you thinking, wow, I have no idea what sports diaries has to do with betting.
You know what? He was really into the white sales, and he wrote them all down. This is where we need to be.
You were looking at me like so obvious. I was just like, what? I'm into interior design and I have never heard of sports books. Betting. Okay.
Betting.
Gotcha.
So that's what I was thinking. If he's going to sporting events, he may be putting money on certain teams.
Okay.
And so he's keeping a log of these teams through bet.
Okay.
Not bed.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
In the aftermath, several families have come forward since 1930 claiming the unknown man could have been one of their missing family members. Most notably was the family of William Briggs. In 1930, William went missing on his way to a doctor's appointment around the same time the murder took place. His family's always suspected that he was a victim of Alfred, but it was never proven. During a family ancestral search in 2012, family members contacted the Northamptonshire police in the hopes of using DNA to confirm the identity of the victim. It was discovered, incredibly, that 2 tissue samples saved on an archival slide from the original autopsy were available.
Oh, wow.
And contained just enough DNA material to create a profile.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
of course,
the DNA ruled out this particular family connection.
Okay, so it wasn't him.
It was not William Briggs.
But it gave that family some closure, at least. Well,
absolutely.
Maybe not closure, but at least gave them an answer.
It closed that door, and now they can look for him elsewhere.
Right.
Yes. It was disappointing for this particular family because it had kind of been handed down from generation to generation that, yes, he was the victim of Alfred Rouse. And it turns out he was not.
So where is he? Right. We're actually starting over. We have even less answers.
Exactly. Now, Dr. Lisa Smith, associate professor in criminology at the University of Leicester, said, quote, "We have not managed to identify the victim in the blazing car murder, but we continue to analyze DNA from families that have been getting in touch with us over the past couple of years. We've had about 12 families get in touch since the original story in the media. Unfortunately, none of them has been a match to the victim's DNA. We're currently discussing how best to proceed with the project and have some ideas that we're considering." So they're trying to get more information out there. I am so encouraged that they're doing this testing now. Also, how disappointing that there are 12 families that have missing family members that are still missing. I don't know. That's sad to me. But hopefully, this unknown man will eventually be connected with his family. In 2022, the unknown man received a new cross at his final resting place. A kindly villager paid for a new cross with an inscription that says, quote, in memory of the unknown man, end quote. Reverend Julie Scott then completed a dedication of the grave marker. When interviewed, she made it clear plans for the site have been carefully considered. She said, quote, this is a tragic story. We need to be careful not to make it a tourist attraction.
Very true.
Which I get. The quest to identify the unknown victim of Alfred Rouse is still ongoing. If you have any ideas as to who this man could be, please contact the Northamptonshire Police Department in London. And that is the very sad, bleak tale of Alfred Rouse and his unknown burning car victim.
That is so sad because somebody didn't come home. Somebody, I'm hopeful that somebody knew him and loved him and cared for him, that he wasn't completely alone in life.
Right.
Somebody, missed him.
Right. It's just so hard to think his killer really viewed him as just less than a human.
Cold,
right?
Cold. I mean, murder is
any murder.
Always terrible to say. I don't know who this is, and I really don't care. He'll serve the purpose, and
Yes.
I'm gonna like for him to like meet this guy at a bar, buy him drinks, and then just be like, he's perfect. I'm gonna come back and get him.
I think that's why my heart really goes out to this victim and his family. I just, me, I really don't like telling stories just about terrible people in general. It's always for the sake of the victim. Now, in this story, I had to tell the story of Alfred Rouse in order to even get to the victim.
We don't know who the victim is.
I know, because we don't know who the victim is, but I really felt compelled to tell the story, not to talk about Alfred Rouse, but to talk about this man and just how very sad that is that he hasn't been identified, but how encouraging it is that 100 years later,
right?
I mean, it's almost 100 years later, and now we have a DNA profile, and it's possible this could be solved, and we could give this victim a name and give his family some closure.
And you know what? I think the chances are likely that at some point this case will be solved.
I really hope that. I hope so. I hope this is one that's solved.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for presenting that. I'd not heard that case.
I can't remember how it came across. But I really thought, what do you mean we don't know who the victim was?
Right.
That seems, especially, I mean, he wasn't poorly dressed. He seemed to be of sound mind. Why someone wasn't missing him, I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. Now, speaking of victims, I would love to move on to our Branch of Hope Foundation report, where we can give back to families of victims.
It's truly the reason why we do this.
Yeah.
We do this so that we can actually help the communities that we discuss every week.
Yeah. And again, I know we've talked about some changes to the Branch of Hope. I'm just kind of going to reiterate what some of those are. Cynthia and I have been working over the last 3 months to make the Branch of Hope Foundation as effective as possible. Our emphasis areas have been giving in meaningful ways, increasing the dollar amount given to each organization we choose to support, and making it easy for you, our shiver-seeking listeners, to participate, share, and give. The true stories we tell in this podcast do provide entertainment and a little bit of excitement, but we also want to remember that there is a real person with family, friends, hopes, and dreams attached to them. The Branch of Hope Foundation allows us to give back to the community, spread awareness about unsolved cases, and hopefully bring a little bit of comfort and hope to those associated with the cases. In light of this, Cynthia and I have decided to make one more little tweak to the Branch of Hope Foundation. Starting this month, we will only feature one Branch of Hope Foundation nonprofit organization. We believe that this will allow us to bring awareness and financial support to each organization and give them a chance to shine. We are still simply a podcast leading through words and actions, and we want to make sure your voice is heard. If you love this episode, love us, or love what we are doing at the Branch of Hope Foundation, please like and subscribe and tell someone. Forward this episode to a friend who might like it. You can also join our Patreon, which will allow us to keep creating and connecting with you.
Please send us an email at thedarkoakpodcast@gmail.com. We are open to your questions, comments, and anything else you want to share. And for other ways to connect, hop over to thedarkoak.com.
Be sure to follow us to our next episode where we follow the mind-blowing case of the convicted serial killer and then exonerated serial killer, Kathleen Folbig. You cannot miss this one, guys. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.